بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we'll be discussing part 2 of Aishah radiyallahu ta'ala anha's beautiful life. In today's talk, one point which was touched upon in part 1 and it's a very important point, that is the marriage of Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the fact that when the marriage took place, Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha's age was only 6 years old. And consummation happened when she was 9. This is established through reliable, authentic narrations of a hadith. And with full pride, Muslims accept the fact, and there's absolutely no need to reject this claim under any pretext whatsoever. Last week I touched upon this subject, and today inshallah, to the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will further elaborate on this very point, because this is a very contentious point and a contentious issue which non-Muslims, which the enemies of Islam use to defame our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They try to discredit him. They try to criticize him by bringing such points and by trying to confuse the general masses. Na'udhu billah, na'udhu billah. They say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was interested in young women to gratify his sexual desires. Na'udhu billah. May Allah protect us from such evil thoughts. But these are the kind of objections that are put out there, especially on social media platforms. And those Muslims who don't have firm, strong, established knowledge, many a times you'll see many Muslims get caught up with this false notion and this false objection which is presented to them by non-Muslims and enemies of Islam. And they wonder that how was this even possible? So first and foremost, let us understand that this did happen. This was the age. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was approximately 50, and Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha was 6 years old when the marriage happened, and when consummation happened, she was 9 years old. So let us accept this fact. Number 2. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the union of man and woman as a fundamental and a very important part of humanity. For as long as this union is established, for as long as a male and female are married, then humanity will thrive. Humanity will develop. Humanity will advance. It is for this reason, in today's day and age, we will find many countries wherein the inherent population and the local population, due to not having children or due to having limited children, that government then opens the doors of immigration. Because all governments know they need workers, they need numbers. And many countries, they don't have that manpower because the locals, their culture is different to the Islamic culture. The general notion is a person should have either no children, one child, or two children, because having children is expensive. Whereas the Islamic culture is, and this is established through hadith, wherein the Prophet ﷺ said that marry a lady who has these two characteristics, walud and wadud. She's extremely loving, wadud. Walud, she is able to give and able to have many children. فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرَ الْأُمَمِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. In the hereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will boast and he will show pride upon every single one of his ummatis. So the bigger the ummah, the more happiness this brings to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was the culture in the olden days. Our parents, our grandparents, especially from back home, they had many children. 10 children was a standard, it was a norm. Although this norm no longer exists in today's culture, but this culture is still practiced upon in our homeland countries. So let us remove these false notions which our culture has presented before us and which society deems correct. We also deem correct? No, it's Allah's society. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's policies. It's Allah's Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's policies and their teachings which are a standard. And if their policies, if their teachings deem something as correct, that will be categorized as correct. And if they deem something as incorrect, that will be categorized as incorrect. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam married Aishah radiyallahu ta'ala anha when Aishah radiyallahu ta'ala anha's age was 6, and consummation happened when Aishah radiyallahu ta'ala anha was 9. So this union of male and female, man and woman, is a natural process of life. And through this natural process of life, humanity thrives. Civilization thrives. Now, the Islam says when a person gets married, he should announce his marriage. He shouldn't hide his marriage. This is a sunnah method of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is to announce their marriage and not to hide the marriage. This is a very important point to understand. When a person is getting married, from the Islamic perspective, the husband and likewise the wife are now halal for one another. So something which is halal, something which is permissible, something which is allowed, why do the husband and wife want to hide that relationship? Yes, they hide the details of that relationship. They hide the sensitive information related to each other. But the marriage itself should be announced. The marriage should happen in the masjid. There needs to be witnesses. Now the extra formalities which we have brought into our marriage ceremonies, which are contrary to the sunnah method, there's no need for those extra ceremonies. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life is a practical example. Walima is sunnah. Having a pre-walima gathering a mehendi gathering, a henna gathering, or an engagement gathering, or a pre-engagement gathering, this is not established to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's marriage, it did occur, and when it happened, just as I was mentioning, the culture during the era of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was different to today's culture. The culture, the climate, the environment, society, politics, Islam, physicality, good health, spirituality, all of these things, they exist today and they exist during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But there's a big difference between both. We cannot compare our society to the society of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We cannot compare our physicality, our health, our cognitive abilities and physical abilities to the physical abilities and cognitive abilities of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, or the Sahabiyat, or the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. There's no comparison. They were of a very high level. We have to try to understand their culture, their trends, their formalities, their customs, their traditions. Only then will we understand in full knowledge how this is even possible. The ulama karam have written, in extremely hot climates and in extremely hot regions, girls, young girls, they tend to reach the age of puberty. They tend to reach the age of maturity much more quicker than those girls who are living in cold climates. And this is the exact same with food and produce as well. Produce, which is grown in hot climates, the taste, the texture, it differs, or it significantly differs from those produce which are produced in cold climates. Even in today's day and age, hot climates like climate in Arabia, climate in Pakistan, climate in India, we will see girls reaching the age of maturity much more quicker than boys. And in those days, the general age wherein a girl would reach the age of maturity, in other words, the general age wherein a girl would transition into a full-grown woman, would be the age of 9. The age of 9. And this is not only specific to Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, other Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, they would also marry or have their children married off or given in marriage at a young age. Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had his daughter married, his daughter Kulthum married to Urwa bin Zubayr at a very young age. Urwa bin Zubayr had his niece married to his nephew at a very young age. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu's wife had, the husband and wife had their daughter married to al-Musayyib bin Nakhba. Al-Musayyib bin Nakhba was married to their daughter at a very young age. And there's a narration which comes in Sunan Dar al-Qutni, wherein Ubad bin Ubad radiyallahu anhu says that there was a lady, her name was Mahalaba. And Mahalaba was a grandmother at the age of 18. I will repeat. Mahalaba was a grandmother at the age of 18. That means she married at the age of 9, had children, and when she reached the age of 18, her daughter was also given in marriage, and that cycle continued. Her daughter then had a child, and Mahalaba became a granddaughter. Sorry, a grandmother. So this custom and tradition, this was general. It was not seen as or considered as abnormal. That was the culture in those days. That was a general environment in those days. That's how society operated in those days. And even in today's day and age, if you go back about 100 years, I was reading that there was an article published in 1934, so about approximately 100 years ago, in India, that in the Victoria Hospital of Delhi, so in the newspaper Medina, there was a lady, I believe her name was, I cannot recall her name, but nonetheless, in the newspaper, this incident was mentioned that a girl whose age was less than 7 years old gave birth in that hospital. And this is established through reliable sources. So in India in 1934, a girl who was less than 7 years old gave birth. So girls who live in hot climates, who live in hot regions, the effect of heat and the effect of that climate and environment is that they reach the age of puberty and reach the age of maturity far quicker than in cold regions. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's situation was the exact same. By the age of 9, her mother, Ruman, looking at her daughter, every mother understands their daughter better than anyone else. So looking at her daughter, she understood that my daughter, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, has now reached the age of maturity, and she is able to go to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not request for her presence. It was Ruman who sent her daughter, Aisha radiallahu anha, to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And she could only do that if Aisha radiallahu anha was fully capable, physically and mentally. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted Aisha radiallahu anha exceptional cognitive abilities. She was extremely smart, extremely intelligent. And along with her exceptional cognitive abilities, physically, the abilities which a lady and a woman needs to have in herself, these abilities and these features and characteristics were also present. Now, the next question. That Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, physically and mentally, did develop all of those features and characteristics which a lady needs at the age of 9. But why did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam marry such a young girl? This question still remains. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, or He selected Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to be not only His messenger, but he was to be the role model until the day of Qiyamah. And this was such a role model that would not only explain His teachings, would not only explain the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His words, rather He would lead by example. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that the ummah and the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which was either present or which will come in the near future, this ummah will research the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and research every single aspect of his life, and they will try to follow in his footsteps. This means every single aspect of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it needed to be disclosed and it needed to be in the public limelight. Now, a person, he has two aspects to his life: the public aspect and the private aspect. Many people, they don't discuss their private issues, their private aspects with other people. It's the public perception which people have of individuals when they see them, when they encounter them, when they meet them, because that's what they see. That's what they go through. That's what they hear. That's what they experience. People do not disclose their personal affairs. People do not disclose their personal and their private affairs. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to marry Aisha radiallahu ta'ala at such a young age and marry multiple wives and several wives, so that the private affairs which happen in one's household, one's personal affairs, especially in relation to women, these affairs can be recorded, preserved, and then taught to the entire Muslim Ummah. So every single wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed these household affairs, these personal affairs, especially those which were sensitive and in relation to women and female, to the entire Muslim Ummah. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's words, his actions, his life, this is the Sharia. This is Islam. So it could not be possible that only one aspect and one part of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, his public life, is out in the open and his private life is concealed and hidden from the Ummah. How will a person be able to acquire guidance from his life? So all of these issues were then spread and brought forward by his wives. Again, the question remains, why did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam marry Aisha radiallahu ta'ala at such a young age? Aisha radiallahu ta'ala's age was exceptionally young. She was 9 years old. But her cognitive abilities, her intellectual abilities, were of such a high nature that great muhaddithin like Imam Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala state, and Ata bin Abi Rabah, that in terms of the Quran, in terms of faraid, in terms of sunnah, in terms of Arab history, in terms of poetry, in terms of lineage, I have seen no greater knowledgeable person than Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's selection was through the divine wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She was exceptionally smart. She was a hafidha, an alima, a fadila. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed away, her age was only 18. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted her 48 more years after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So she passed away in the 58th year of Hijrah. Now, in these years of her life, great, illustrious, and prominent Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, companions radiyallahu anhum, they used to seek knowledge from Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Yes, a lady, a female. And it was Aisha radiyallahu anha which used to resolve many highly contentious issues. Issues which were a form of disagreement among the companions. They used to go to Aisha radiyallahu anha to resolve those issues. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala was a faqihah. She had that solution because of the companionship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she spent 9 years with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before his demise. In these 9 years, Allah granted her that position, that academic position, that intellectual position, that position in piety, that she was a leader. And all of this used to happen with segregation. With segregation. She used to correct Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum if corrections were needed. Once Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Man husiba udhiba. Whosever accountability is taken, that person will be punished. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said that, Ya Rasulullah, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. That a person will have an easy reckoning, an easy accountability in the hereafter. And whereas you are saying, whoever's accountability is taken, he will be punished. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that, O Aisha, this hadith is referring to those people whose a'mal, whose actions, whose deeds will be interrogated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask certain individuals, why did you do this? On this date you did this. On this date you did this. On this date you did this. What were the reasons behind doing this, and that? You committed this disobedience, this violation. So whoever's actions are interrogated, that person will be punished. This was the caliber of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. That she had great fiqh insight, great intellectual insights. And she was intelligent right from the get-go. So these 9 years that she spent in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even up to today, we find guidance in the books of hadith. We find many answers which were only found through their wives and only found through Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And it's a very famous concept that children learn when they're young. A child becomes a hafid, a good, solid, strong hafid when he's young. Even in today's day and age, I know of children who have become hafid and they're still living today in the 20th century. One child became a hafid when he was 7, and another child became a hafid when he was 8. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's abilities were not of a child. They were much higher than even an adult. Her maturity, her perception on Islamic matters. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam so that Islam could prosper. So all of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's household affairs could reach the ummah. And that's exactly what happened. So this is the background behind why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam married Aisha radiallahu ta'ala at such a young age. Obviously, number one, because of culture. 2, because of the hot climate, the hot region. 3, it was a divine wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this to happen. 4, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala was extremely intelligent, extremely clever, extremely sharp, right from a young age. 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to convey the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to the ummah through the likes of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. 6, great Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's nephew, Urwa bin Zubayr, who was a son of Asma bint Abi Bakr. He was a son of the sister of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. So Asma and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, they were the daughters of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And Urwa bin Zubayr was a son of Asma bint Abi Bakr. So Urwa bin Zubayr used to spend much time in his aunt's company. And he claims, and he is saying, that I have not seen a greater alima than Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And Ata bin Abi Rabah says that I believe that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala is the greatest alima ever. So these were extremely illustrious ladies, prominent companions, prominent sahabiyat, prominent wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Their lives are a role model for ourselves. We should also be concerned of our daughters. We should give our daughters correct and a strong Islamic upbringing and correct and a strong Islamic ta'lim and education through reliable, authentic sources. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable, first of all, myself and thereafter everyone else to appreciate the teachings of Sharia, to appreciate Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam seerah and his life, and to appreciate what Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha has given to the Islamic Ummah. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Sadaqallahu al-azim.